Recording.
Right. All right, so we'll call the meeting to order at 7:09 p.m. And if we can all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Okay, so we'll move on to item number 3, public comment. Malia, did we receive any public comments?
There was no public comment.
Okay, so we will move on to item number 4, which is approve the minutes of the July 21st, 2020 regular meeting. Can I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Motion by Anne Marie, second by Trish. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. First Selectmen's report, item number 5. I don't have any final numbers yet for fiscal year 2020. The numbers are changing, but not for the positive. We received an unexpected claims request for both the town and the Board of Education from Cigna. This will push the municipal side deficit up and the Board of Education surplus down. We hope to have the final numbers by the end of the month once we get through the 60-day accruals. But we had been looking at a number in the neighborhood of 90,000. We think that number is going to be more in the area of 200,000 for the overall deficit for the town. Tax receipts for fiscal year 21 are about $200,000 behind where they were as of the end of July for fiscal year 20. We will continue to monitor the situation, but we'll keep the spending freeze in place until we have more of an understanding after August. A lot of people don't pay their taxes in July. They forget for whatever reason. So I think we'll have a better picture as to where we stand at the conclusion of this month. So expect an update at our first meeting in September on that. Rich has been working on the options for the Eversource situation. Sent me a memo the other day with 3 different options. Him and I are going to talk through those to try to determine which might be the best course of action, but expect at our next meeting, the first meeting in September, that memo will be on the agenda for discussion. We'll bring forward all the options that Rich has come up with, and then obviously we'll make a recommendation, but we want to have those discussions with all of you so you are aware. There is a class action lawsuit that's been filed, and the city of Danbury is also filing a lawsuit and looking for other towns and cities to join in with them. So we'll review all those options, and Rich and I will give an update to you guys at our next meeting. So that closes the first Selectmen's report. Item number 6, discuss and take possible action regarding STEAP Grant Resolution. Now, we have not, there has not been a STEAP program through the state of Connecticut over the last few years due to obviously budgetary concerns. Governor Malloy has restarted the STEAP program, and Seymour is eligible for a grant up to $128,205. Generally, STEAP grants, we can apply up to $500,000, but this year they have put caps on municipalities based on their size and so on and so forth. Chris, hold on one second, just let me get all the way through it. So we had a project in place that we had been discussing. We do not have enough space at Public Works. In the fiscal year 20 budget, we had put aside $18,000 to rent space to be able to have some cold storage to be able to move our equipment around. We were unable to find anything that was appropriate. We did keep the $18,000 in the line item as the line item for fiscal year 21, with the thought of purchasing an additional building that would be placed down in the Public Works yard. So we had all of the engineering done. We had a building and everything picked out, and we were starting to come up with ways in which we could pay for this. The grant appeared kind of at the same time. So we had some internal conversations with staff, with our engineer, Brian Nesteriak, our finance director, Doug Thomas. We thought the STEAP grant would be a good use of these funds. Dee Caruso did do some research, and buildings like this have been used or have been approved for STEAP grants in the past. So what we need to do as a board is to pass this municipal certification of resolution, which you have in the packets, which I'll read into the record to get the process started, and then we can go ahead with questions and comments. So it says municipal certification of resolution STEAP 2020. It says, I, Leanne McMurray, town clerk of the town of Seymour, a municipality organized and existing under the laws of the state of Connecticut, hereby certify that the following is a true copy of a resolution adopted at the representative town meeting of said municipality at a regular monthly meeting held on Tuesday, August 4, 2020. Obviously, that's a little bit different than what we have, but so the resolution is as follows. Resolved that First Selectman W. Kurt Miller be and hereby is authorized to accept on behalf of the town of Seymour a 2020 Connecticut STEAP grant in the amount of $128,205 for the Seymour Public Works Cold Storage Building, and further resolve that First Selectman W. Kurt Miller is hereby authorized to enter into and execute any and all agreements, contracts, and documents necessary to obtain said 2020 STEAP grant with the state of Connecticut. So can I have a motion to approve that resolution
A
as
motion
read?
to approve.
All right, so we have a motion by Bob, and I believe Trish was second. So under discussion, so Anne Marie, do you want to talk before we get going on this? You want to talk a little bit about the need for space and kind of what you guys have discussed at the Public Works Board with that?
Yes. Let me try to unmute. Yep. So we are out of room. We've been out of room for over a year now with bringing in material from the salt shed. And we really can't expand our building without putting this in because of the river being over there. We've been asking for the past 2 years, trying to come up with ideas of where we could go, what we could do. We've been looking at buildings. We thought about going up on Skokerat. And we just need to keep all of our equipment together. We want to be in one place. We don't want to be spread out throughout the town because we figured that'd be the best place to be. You know, we are looking at getting more equipment. Last night in our Public Works meeting, we talked about getting down the road another payloader. This storm was very troublesome, not for us, but if we had 2 payloaders, we could have had one on the west side and one on the east side of the town working with the teams. So the more equipment we get and the more efficient we're becoming, the more room we need.
And to build off Anne Marie's point, one of the biggest issues we have is because our Public Works Department has been doing such a good job, we've been purchasing new equipment, updated equipment, and it's like a game of Frogger down there trying to put all the equipment in the garage, and we still unfortunately have some pieces of equipment that are outside. This garage would be designed to house all of our big dump trucks and all of our plow equipment throughout the summer. So we'd be able to keep all of that inside. And then in the winter, we could flip flop and put summer used equipment into that building and move our bigger trucks and plows and things into the regular garage. So, you know, we're making good investments in the infrastructure for Public Works. This is absolutely a necessity to help maintain this equipment, help it last a little bit longer. Now, if you look at the budget, and then I'll take questions. I know a few of you have questions. The budget was put together in total by Brian Nesteriak. He went through and kind of analyzed what was needed. He reached out to other communities to see what has worked. Brian is looking at a total cost in the neighborhood of $198,000. Assuming we get this STEAP grant of $128,000, added into the $18,000 that we have encumbered from fiscal year 20, plus the $18,000 we have budgeted in fiscal year 21, that would give us $164,205. So we'd have a shortfall of $34,000. If we were to receive this STEAP grant, the $34,000 would be placed into the fiscal year 21 capital plan to allow us to be able to pay for this completely in cash and be able to get this done, weather permitted, as soon as possible. Now, I would not expect it to be this fall. I would expect it would be a springtime, because I'm not sure how quickly these STEAP grants will be approved and how much work we can or cannot do in the colder months, because we will need to do a foundation, lay some concrete and things down like that, which a lot of that work will be handled by Public Works. So that's kind of everything in a quick little nutshell. I know some people had some questions, so if you want to just throw your hands back up, I'll go through the line.
Just one quick thing. You had said that this grant was brought forth by Governor Malloy. Did you mean Governor Lamont?
Governor Lamont.
That was it.
Sorry. 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Bob Finley.
Just one question with the STEAP grant. Is there a certain time you have to use it by? Or is it just?
There generally is, yes, and I don't know what that is, but they will understand what the project is, and doing it by springtime would not be an issue at all.
Okay.
I know you have a year or two, because some of these grants in the past had been bigger ones, which have a lot of moving parts to it. So doing this in the spring would not be an issue whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Rob?
You can answer this. I'm sure Anne Marie would be able to perhaps a little better. Was this idea competing with any others? Do we have kind of a list? If we were given $10 million, that would be first, and then second, third, fourth ideas?
Well, we kicked around several different ideas, but STEAP has a limited scope of what would qualify.
Yeah.
One of the things that we looked at, we try to prioritize essential needs. One of the initial things we looked at was redoing the bathrooms at the high school, the locker rooms at the high school by the pool. Because if you've been up there, I think we can all agree that those are not in the best shape. Getting a lot of use through our recreation department, through the school, but unfortunately that would not qualify. One of the things, there needs to be some matching funds from the town for this project. The locker rooms themselves, even if they qualified, would be substantially more, and would need to be paid for by the Board of Education. The Board of Education would not have the funds at this point to take on a project like that. So, we kind of kicked through these different things. This is the one that the staff kind of agreed on, made the most sense. Primarily because we had, it's something we've been looking at for the last 2 years. It's a need that we've had. We've been trying to come up with a solution, and this gives us the ability to address that solution without really too much strain or stress on the budget whatsoever. Yep. Anybody else with any questions? Okay, so what you are essentially approving is giving us the ability to apply for this this grant, and then giving me the authority to go ahead and sign any paperwork or anything like that is necessary. This was originally due last week. That's one of the reasons why we were going to call the special meeting last Tuesday, was to put this on, but because of the storm, the governor has pushed the deadline to the end of the month. So we'll have everything sent out tomorrow, assuming this is an affirmative vote, and we'll be set to go. All right, so any other thoughts, comments, questions? No? Okay, hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Okay, at this point, I'm going to make a motion to add to the agenda discussion and possible action regarding second amended and restated lease agreements between the town of Seymour and the Boys and Girls Club of the Lower Naugatuck Valley. I have a motion to do so.
If I may.
Anne Marie?
Yeah,
Oh, Rich,
just
go
as
ahead.
a quick point of order on that. I think you said lease agreement. I think you meant to say,
Oh, license. Correct. Yes. Yes. License agreement. Thank you, Rich. All right. So license agreement as opposed to lease agreement. Emery, you're still okay making the motion? Emery's nodded yes. Is there a second? Now Bruno has leaned in and seconded. Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda, discussion and possible action regarding second amended and restated license agreement between the town of Seymour and the Boys and Girls Club of Lower Naugatuck Valley. Okay, so as you know, the Boys and Girls Club has been closed since March when we started to close the buildings. With the schools coming back online, even in a hybrid model, the Boys and Girls Club are looking to offer some type of services, even at a reduced level, to families that may have need for that. What they are looking to do is to have a full day operation, which would allow the kids to be able to do their distance learning from the Boys and Girls Club and having support there for those kids. So obviously, I think we would all agree that that is certainly a worthwhile thing to have. However, there are a lot of concerns that come along with that because of the virus, because of the building and everything else. So over the last few days, we've spent some time, myself, Rich, Tony Caserta, Tom Amy, Tim Connors, going through and discussing all the pros and cons. And we're to a point now where we think that we could present to the Boys and Girls Club a license agreement that would allow them to open, but at the same time would limit the amount of liability that the town of Seymour has, and would, you know, make some changes that would also provide some other benefits. So I'm going to run through just some of the high points first, and I'll let Rich jump in and add to it, and then we can take your questions. So well, essentially what we would be changing is the Boys and the Girls Club would have access to, we'll call it their 4 core rooms that are downstairs in the basement of the community center. They would be able to use those rooms following all proper protocol for COVID. And Rich has worked with their attorney, Dominic Thomas, to establish some guidelines that need to be followed. Tom Amy has had some input on those as well. And that's where they would primarily conduct all of their activity. They would still use the gym space. They would have access to that between 2:30 and 5:30, or any other time that they can work out with Mary, depending on programming in the community center. However, they are responsible for cleaning the gym before they go in and cleaning the gym when they are done. So that's not only cleaning, but doing sanitizing and things like that. They are now also responsible for the cleaning and sanitizing of their entire usage. So that includes the bathrooms. In the past, they did their own cleaning and we maintain the bathrooms. That will no longer be the case. The Boys and Girls Club will now be responsible for the cleaning and we'll call it COVID care of the entire space. They will not be using the large community room or the old cafeteria. This will allow the food bank to continue their operations in there for the time being, at least through the COVID pandemic. The only thing that the Boys and Girls Club would use that room for is they will use the bathroom that will be there. So we will put up a little, I know we can't put up a wall because that breaks fire code, but we'll have a little separation so the kids could use the bathroom. The workers of the food bank will use the bathrooms that are actually inside the food bank's main area. So we've kind of been able to satisfy the food bank as well as satisfy the Boys and Girls Club with this agreement, which is certainly a positive. So, Rich, do you want to kind of weigh in a little bit on your conversations with Dominic or on the liability, things like that?
well, what I'd like to point out in terms of the liability, we have required them to name the town of Seymour as an additional insured on their insurance policy. We required them to produce a copy of the policy. There is, in fact, no pandemic exclusion within the policy. So that gives us some level of comfort. And on top of that, we put a specific provision in that the premises are to be operated in accordance with the guidance for childcare for centers and childcare homes during the COVID-19 as issued by the State of Connecticut Office of Early Childhood dated August 5th, 2020. So the latest thinking from the state weighed in on August 5th, 2020. This was all put in motion, and that is being incorporated, and they're required to operate the facility in accordance with that guidance. That's social distancing, cleaning, caps in terms of the number of kids. So it would get this place back up and running and provide some relief to the parents and the kids of the town of Seymour. We also have added to the hold harmless and indemnification provisions of the license with respect to COVID-19. So all in all, it's about as much as we can do to try to protect the town and also to have them operate in accordance with the state requirements, which they've agreed to do. So it hasn't gone to their board yet. We're bringing it here first, and then it's going to go to their board. But hopefully, if I understand everything correctly, they are looking to reopen consistent and in accordance with the first day of school.
Okay, so that's kind of where everything stands. Again, we thought it was appropriate to bring it to this board first to get an understanding of what everyone's thoughts are. We do not have the finalized license agreement yet. There are still a few tweaks that need to be worked out between Rich and Dominic Thomas, the attorney for the Boys and Girls Club. So what we're looking for tonight is the authority to allow Rich and I to continue this process and then to ultimately sign this new license agreement. So let's start with questions. Trish, go ahead.
My understanding a while back, and I understand the services the Boys and Girls Club offer are important. I know that there's families that are in need and kids need the socialization as well. But my understanding with COVID is it requires an adequate amount of ventilation. And I believe I've heard in the past that the only location at the community center that provides that is the gym that you're saying is going to have limited use.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. I don't believe the rest of the community center has, because of its age and our inability to keep it up to date and really invest in it as we should over the years, it's not properly ventilated in the other rooms. And I think if that's the case, I think it's too high a risk to allow it. Unless we can do something within the gym for everybody exclusively, because I think I recall in the past hearing that was properly ventilated.
They could not use what they're trying to accomplish. They could not do in the gym because the way the rules are. They are aware of the situation that the community center offers. They understand the rules and requirements as Rich has discussed with Dominic, and they feel that they are going to be able to meet those requirements. Rich, you want to speak on that as well?
They have to fully comply with the guidance from the Office of Early Childhood. And they're giving us an indemnity with respect to COVID-19, the Boys and Girls Club, in addition to the insurance policy. So they are certainly familiar with the building.
Right.
Okay.
You know,
I understand. I'm just talking about from a personal, if we're going to make a decision, if we think it's a good idea, I think that there's, legally, I understand we're protected. I understand they're aware of the building and what's offered and what's not offered. But I think we have some responsibility as individuals on the Selectmen's board to kind of weigh if we really think it's a smart idea. and to allow it. And that's where I stand.
Tom Amy has voiced the concerns that he has. They are aware of those concerns, and they feel that they're going to be able to meet the standards that Rich has mentioned.
Can I almost don't want to ask this, but as a responsible adult, I'm going to do it anyway. Like, who has said they feel they can meet it? Because I understand it's a needed program. I think that they do a good job. I also know that it's a younger group of folks who tend to oversee the kids over at the community center, and that concerns me as well, if I'm to speak honestly about how well they'll be able to adhere to. So when you're saying they really feel that they can meet these, is that that's the high, I mean, who is ultimately going to stop in and check in and make sure that that's actually happening with the staff at hand? I mean, those are really the big issue for me is the ventilation, quite honestly, but that is a secondary concern of mine.
That responsibility would fall to their executive director. She is comfortable with the process. Their unit director is comfortable with the process. And ultimately, the Boys and Girls Club Board of Directors is comfortable with the process, assuming that they vote to move forward with this. So to answer your question, that responsibility is going to fall on the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club to make sure that they are complying.
Understood.
It's not going to be our place to go in and tell them whether they are or
it's not, but it is our place to say whether we think it's a good idea they utilize our building or not. And I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Since we're going right down the line, Bob Finley.
Yeah, so as part of the license, will there be some type of sanitizing schedule or amount of children that can be in certain rooms at a certain time? Is that all part of the license?
Rich?
Well, the number of children allowed into each room and the number allowed to be in the building as a total is set by the state of Connecticut as part of the as part of the guidelines that they must comply with.
So that's all a component of that. So if they follow those guidelines, that'll all be a part of
and
it.
they have to do the cleaning in accordance with the CDC guide, which is incorporated. So that part of it is that's really set by the state. It's a state standard.
Right. So what we're saying is we're not going to have any of that in our language. That's just going to be follow the.
Yeah. What we actually have in terms of language is that the licensee will comply with all applicable laws, guidelines, regulations, executive orders, and other requirements related to or otherwise arising from the current COVID-19 public health emergency in regards to licensees' use of the premises, which may include, but are not limited to, the guidance for child care for centers and child care homes during the COVID-19 as issued by the State of Connecticut Office of Early Childhood, dated August 5th, 2020, as the same may be updated, revised, or otherwise amended, and any licensing laws and COVID-19 handbooks regulating the operation of licensees' business. So that's the most current thinking, and that's the
that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay.
That may change. Like a lot of the stuff that's come out of Hartford from March 10th to now has evolved in many different ways. That may change over a period of time. It may get more restrictive or it may get looser.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yep.
And they were thinking that the amount of kids is going to be basically cut in half. So their plan is no more than 14 kids a room. I guess that complies with the guidelines as Rich has stated. So that will give them about 52 kids, as opposed to they would normally have 70, 80, 90 kids on a given day, some days. All right, so Bob, you're good, Bob? I think Chris, you had your hand up, I believe.
Yes. I guess, and this kind of piggybacks off of Tricia's point as well. The Board of Education's meeting was yesterday, and they have the hybrid model put out there to the point where from what little I've been able to read of it so far, keeping kids home is more or less not an option. So I guess my question is, especially with the point that you made about the 14, they think there's going to be 14 kids. I'm not sure where they get that estimate, because I wonder, could there potentially be a greater need for their services with the breakup of going to school and with having the different schedules? Because while I definitely share Trish's concerns, I also share the concerns in talking to some of the people that I know in my life in town who are being forced into some very weird positions where they might have to quit their jobs to take care of their kids.
So Chris, if I may on that,
Go for
that number that Kurt just mentioned comes right out of the state guidelines. So even though there may be a need, there certainly may be a need for greater service than 52 kids, but that's the maximum under the state regs that can be put in one room. So we have 4 rooms, Kurt, if I'm correct about that, and that's where that number comes from, I think, right?
Yeah, it's actually, it's 56, not 52. I did some bad math. Sorry.
So that number, it's not our number, and I'll bet you there is a need greater, but that's all the Boys and Girls Club can house under the state regulation.
And that's
And Chris,
including, hold on, that's including the lack of space, because the food bank is going to continue, and they have a need too. They're
Yeah.
going to continue to use the space that they have, the old home ec room, the loading dock, etc.
Yes,
So fewer rooms, more need, and limits on class size.
yes. That's why I said what I said before, that this is the most that we can do under the circumstances with that space, working with the Boys and Girls Club. Yeah.
Then I have serious concerns as to our ability to pull this off. And if we are the last checkpoint for that, I think we need to think very carefully before we approve that. I share Ms. Donka's concerns.
well, it's not us that has to pull this off. It's them that has to pull this off. They're the ones that are required to follow the guidelines. They're the ones that are required to make sure that they're adhering to all of the restrictions, and they go into this eyes wide open. So, you know, it's for us to decide, do we want to change this license agreement or not? And again, it's, you know, you're weighing out the need versus what could potentially happen. And, you know, the need of these families, what other option are some of these families going to have based on the hybrid model that the school system has put out? So the last thing we want is to be over cautious, over protective, and now people unfortunately are having to give up jobs because they have no other alternatives. So it's not an easy decision. It's something that we didn't go into lightly, but I think the benefit to the families outweighs any potential risks, at least on the town side. I'm not going to speak for the risks on the Boys and Girls Club side, but I think Rich has done a very good job in protecting the interests and the liability of the town of Seymour. Rob or Chris, is that good? I don't want to skip over if you have more.
I mean, this is relatively short notice for a vote that I think is fairly consequential. I don't know. I'm going to cede my time going forward.
Okay. Rob.
Listening to everyone's concerns, I agree. I do want to point out, I've worked with the Boys and Girls Club a lot. And not that Trish was saying that, and I understand her differentiation between the higher ups and the kids who might be volunteering to help. But I can tell you from their history in that building, they're very familiar. I'm sure that anything we're thinking about, they have been agonizing over leading up to this. So they're not, if they're doing this, they're not doing it lightly. To Chris's point, they understand that there is a need that they have to help out with. And I'm sure, you know, we all wish we could do more safely. If this is the minimum we can do to help out, I fully believe that the people involved in making that decision are taking on the full weight of this and understand the possibilities. So that's my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Okay. Anne Marie or Al, any thoughts or comments?
No,
I've
I-
been patient.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Emery, you first.
Go ahead.
I
All right,
insist.
I'll decide. I'll go ahead. I'll let Emery have the last word.
Well, I'm used to that. Right? So,
Mhm.
Emery and everybody, I think with this, if the Boys and Girls Club has examined this, as Rob has said, he knows the individuals there. He knows they're not taking it lightly. And like Kurt said, it's not our issue. We have a town need for this type of service in the current situation. So the more families we can help, the better. That's my opinion. So if things go south, they're going to take care of it. They're going to address it. But in the time being, assuming all things go forward in a manner we all hope they do, families who work, two-family incomes, they need the help with their kids. So I'm all for it.
Okay, Emery?
I agree with Al. There are families in town, they don't know what they're going to do. They need the help. I'm sure the Boys and Girls Club will do everything in their power to ensure that there is no outbreak. Everything's going to be kept clean. I say go ahead with it.
Yeah, and I have a little less reservation knowing how they performed over the summer with in Ansonia and in Shelton with their summer camps. And speaking with Shay, actually, they had less kids than they had anticipated, to be honest. So I don't know if that was because of the summer, maybe more people were home. But again, the big things for me were the liability for the town. And I believe Rich has addressed that as best as we possibly can. But more importantly, just the need for our residents because of the circumstances that this pandemic has put upon us. And again, I would hate to see someone to have to give up a job because they need to be home with their kids. This is at least going to give an opportunity for these families to be able to do that. I think the rewards outweigh the risks. But what we'll do is we will do a roll call vote. That way, if anyone is interested in voting no, that way their voice can
Kurt,
absolutely be
I
heard
couldn't
and
hear you with that last piece.
identified.
Kurt, I couldn't hear.
We're gonna do a roll call vote. Roll call vote. And I'll just go down the line. That way, people's vote can be recorded. It's just not a all for and all against type thing. So, any other comments, thoughts, anything else? Anybody like to add? No? Okay, I'm just gonna go like always as you appear on my screen. I'm gonna start on the right-hand side. So Bob Finley,
No, I approve.
approve, okay. Trish,
I'm going to abstain because I don't feel like I know enough to make a decision that I'm comfortable with voting yes. And I'm a bit torn because I agree
Okay.
there's people in need, but I'm just not there comfortable.
okay. All right, so Anne-Marie,
Or
Al,
Yes, 4.
Chris,
Despite my reservations that I share with Ms. Daka, I'm going to vote yes for this because in the brief time that I've been able to speak to people today, the parental need does bear very heavily. At the end of the day, although there is a risk of COVID, people got to eat. And the Boys and Girls Club, especially with Mr. Van Egan and Mr. Bruno, effectively talked me into it. The need outweighs the concern, and I definitely share her concerns. But I'm going to be a yes on this.
okay. Rob,
Yes.
okay. I vote yes as well. So the motion passes 6-0-1. And Monica, you have everyone's votes recorded correctly?
I do.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, everyone. All right, we'll move on to item number 7. Discussion to take possible action regarding WPCA budget. we're going to spend some time with the WPCA over the next two agenda items. But the first one is dealing with the budget itself. If you recall, the initial budget that we got was substantially lacking in information. There really wasn't much to it. So the WPCA board, through its chairman, Jim Cretella, sent this memo on to us, which provides some breakdown and some understanding of the different lines. This is substantially better than where it was before. While I don't think it is the greatest budget proposal, this is leaps and bounds better than where they were. There have been several conversations with the WPCA, with Veolia. Anne-Marie has also kind of spearheaded a little bit to try to move this along a little bit better from a board's perspective. But we have been looking at different things. So I'd like to draw your attention to the first page, where they actually go through and they give some information as to why line items have been changed. Not a tremendous amount of detail, but there is some detail. If you move to page 2, it talks a little bit about the revenue aspect of it and why that has changed. It's in, I think, pretty simple and easy to understand terms for lay people, because this stuff can get a little confusing. And probably Bob and Rob and Anne-Marie are the only ones that really understand it when they start talking technical, but this kind of breaks that down a little bit for us. And then there also is a little additional summary at the end where it kind of talks about the revenue. Now, the big things that I think we need to take out of this, the things that I find unacceptable, and I don't think that's a fault of this document or something that we should hold this document accountable for, but their collection percentage is absolutely atrocious. 87%, I think the 7 of us could do a better job collecting 87% than they can. So we've started some conversations, Rich, with Ben Proto, who is the attorney for the WPCA, and again, Anne-Marie kind of pushing this along to try to put things in place that will help improve their collection percentage. Now, even if you went up 2, 3, 4%, that would equate to a good amount of money. So they are working through that process. There is no definitive plan yet in place, but I think that's something we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth in our next agenda item. So, at this point, it would be my recommendation to accept this budget as it's presented, and then to address other outstanding items that we've talked about as a board and other avenues that we'll talk in our next agenda item. So with that, I'll put a motion out and then we can have some discussion from the board. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to accept the fiscal year 2021 WPCA budget as presented by Jim Cretella, the chairman of the WPCA.
So moved.
Motion by Rob, second by Bob. Did you throw your hand up, Bob Finley?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So discussion, comments, thoughts, questions? Trish?
I just had a quick question. I saw that they have a capital line, and I know that we've spoken that they've not really done much with that in the past. So, I mean, are we able to go back and ask for a breakdown what they plan to do with those funds in the upcoming fiscal year?
There is, so this is something we're going to talk about in a little bit more depth in our next agenda item, but they do have we'll call it a capital plan. It's a plan of about $5 million. Their plan is to address it through this line item at about $200,000 per year, which I think we could all agree is, trying to bail the Titanic out with a Dixie cup. It's just never going to get there. But they do have a plan. The WPCA did have their engineer, Jim Galligan, put this plan together through Anne-Marie's I'll use the term urgent because that's the nicest way that I could put it. So they do have the needs identified. The issue is the funding mechanism, which is woefully inadequate.
Yeah, I was going to back that up. What Trish just said. I was going to ask the same thing about a capital plan, spending plan.
Yep. But that won't, I think of the right way to say this. The need to fund the capital plan would not change this budget presentation. Because now it's too
No.
late for that to be put in. Yeah. Is it something that for fiscal year 21-22? 100%, absolutely. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in our next agenda item. So what other questions, comments, thoughts?
I'll just make another comment that I noticed that they're going to be increasing a standard, it looks like $12 increase average across the board, which under their current reputation, I think is abominable that they're increasing it at all.
Yes.
I just wanted to say it out loud. Thank you.
No, that's okay. You're very welcome, Trish. I think we'll get every hand just went up. So I think we're going to have a lot of agreements with. So hold on, Bob Finley, you already went. So let me go to the next row. We'll circle back to you. Rob Van Agen.
I was going to point out that the expected percentage collection rate will remain unchanged at 87% in anticipation of possible COVID-19 related impacts. So instead of trying to go after more money, we're just going to jack up the price on the people who are paying.
Yes, it seems to be that is, well, people are not paying. They're eventually paying, but they're paying with interest and late and so on and so forth. But again, things we're going to address in the next.
I was very upset with the original presentation. That was just give us more. I'm happy to see more detail and thought in this. It's a shame that it takes such prodding to get that. So we'll move on.
And if,
yes,
Mr. First Selectman, if I can just weigh in for a second, I just want to remind everyone on the board that all you're doing is accepting the budget as having sufficient information.
Right.
This fiscal decision is not ours to make or yours to make. It's the WPCA's. The charter didn't, and state statute did not give the Board of Selectmen that authority as presently configured. So just to keep that in mind.
This is venting. This is
exactly fine. I get it, Rob. Okay.
And Trish let us off nicely with that. So, so Chris.
Is there a drop dead date for this? In other words, is there a date that we have to accept this budget by or else face legal ramifications?
There's years where we never accepted a budget at all. So, Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but no.
Not really.
Yeah.
So basically, we don't have to, we can say yes, no, we can say whatever we want, but it really doesn't matter.
Well,
What you're saying?
I guess one way to do it is they provided it to you. There may not be any formal action even required for it. You can basically, you received it, it's sufficient unless you took a formal action in rejecting the prior submission as not meeting the standard in the charter. You're literally not required, in my view, to take any action. They have submitted this to you as they're required to do so, and if it's sufficient information, there's nothing further required. If you rejected it again, then in theory, they could provide you with more information at some point, but you know, the bills are, I'm sure the bills are going out, and the monies will get collected because in the end, it's their decision on the budget. This is just a quirk of your charter that 2 charter revision commissions required them to forward a budget with sufficient detail to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Al or Anne Marie, before we go up to Bob Finley, who's patiently waiting. No? Oh, Anne Marie? All right, hold on, Anne Marie. Go ahead, Bob Finley. 'Cause I can see that smile on Anne Marie. She's up to no good.
No, I'm happy there's more information. I mean, I'm on this one. I was happy that they provided more information on it. There are some areas where the maintenance budget increase, it's just kind of this generic statement. It's going to be increased by a certain percentage with no depth to it. What's capital spend? There's no depth to it. Those are pieces. I mean, I'm willing to accept it as it is, but with the thought process is, can we get additional information about what those things are and what those increases amount to, based on last year's load and the expected load for next year.
With regards to the capital plan, I can forward that on to you guys in the morning, so you guys can all see that. But with regards to the load and the changes to that, I would defer that to Anne Marie to provide as much information as she has. I mean, even if she has it all, which I'm not sure she's going to even have it all, but Anne Marie?
Thank you. I don't have it all. I wish I had all the answers, but unfortunately I do not. I can tell you, as far as the load is, the WPCA is not even at 50% capacity. Even if it was possible to have all of Seymour on water and sewer, we wouldn't even be at 3/4 of our capacity. That is why the state, through the EPA, has decided to do a regionalization. They're looking at regionalization, as is everybody else's, right? So they're looking at Beacon Falls coming to us, maybe Derby coming to us, maybe Ansonia coming to us. But in our last meeting with the Valley COG, that kind of went down the drain because our equipment is older than 20 years old and has never been updated. The equipment in the plant was used when it was brought in. So
yeah, that's where it all ties together. That's where my head was going. Yeah.
Right. So we may not be able to take in anybody to get in more money for ourselves, let alone they may sit there and say, Seymour, your plant is not sufficient enough to even handle it due to the age of your equipment, and you have to send yours to Ansonia, or you may have to send it to Naugatuck. If they did that, then there is revenue lost for us. I agree. It was a lot of prodding. That was a good word. A lot of prodding just to get this information out. We should have more information. I know our not our town engineer, the WPCA's engineer, as well as our attorney, Mr. Proto, was working very closely with me, prodding the board, prodding Veolia to get as much information as we can possibly, and reasoning why. The last meeting that I was able to attend, I did state that they should have more information than this as to why. Give us a breakdown of the chemicals, what chemicals went up, what chemicals went down. Just, if you look, they have their permit, the state of Connecticut licensing fee, they dropped it down a 60% decrease. We apply for a license every 5 years. We have to start our licensing fee 6 months prior to our permit is due. So I'm sure the pricing could have went down elsewhere in some places, and in our maintenance, it should have went up. I have a lot of issues with the maintenance as well as the plant. If there was more maintenance going in, more dollars in that maintenance plant, but per our contract, there's a certain amount. I don't think we would be in half the trouble we would be in. I honestly have to say that, with the change of the chair, I was able to find out more information than what was passed on to the whole board, because in previous chairs, we weren't really allotted. A lot of that was not discussed. A lot of that was done behind the scenes. So, any questions I can answer for you guys?
Somebody on a boat?
Do I have a boat? No.
Heard like a
You
boat.
have
I can hear in the
a
background.
vote?
What was that?
That was the ding.
In all seriousness,
Yeah.
Now that I've heard everybody chime in, I think, Chris, have you chimed in yet?
I had some questions, but the only thing I really wanted to chime in about, I mean, this explanation, we say it's better, but that doesn't mean it's good. They still don't have any plans for collection rate increasing other than just saying, we've got a plan. We've got a plan. I mean,
But
I
again,
agree,
that's
Chris.
not for us.
this
So,
just
Right.
sucks less than it did.
It does.
it's
Their
true.
collection rate is outrageous. I will agree. When you look at 85% and looking in the past and saying, hey, what can we do to collect more? But when, and, you know, discussing this with other people, when I sit there and say the elderlies, you know, the little old ladies, when I sit there and say the elderly people are on fixed income, just like a lot of us are on fixed income nowadays, right? But when the state sets the interest rate, which the town has no way to set that rate, it's set by the state of Connecticut at 20%. Once you get $1,000, $2,000, 20% is a lot. It's very hard for people to get caught up on that. So it should never been allotted to go that far. They should have been stopping this once it hit 500, 800, 1,000. They should have been sending the letters.
But again, for this part,
Right.
we're just approving what they've presented is enough information. We do not have to agree with it, to Rich's point. Our next agenda item, I think all of that would be very appropriate during the discussion.
I think so.
Yes. So what other comments, thoughts does anyone have with regards to accepting the budget submission? Not necessarily agreeing with the budget, not necessarily agreeing with their plan of moving forward, just the submission of the budget itself.
Yes, it's been submitted.
Yeah, Kurt, I'd just like to add, now that I've heard everybody speak and I processed it and I wanted to hear what everybody else had to say first. Yeah, I mean, it's inadequate for what they've done. But if it passes muster for this particular situation, sounds like that's fine. But we really need more data moving forward in a budget, and perhaps they need some training how to put a budget together. Maybe if they ask for it, we can point them in the right direction. I mean, we have multiple people on this board alone, Board of Finance. We have a lot of folks that can offer them the proper template and maybe go over the process of how to do this instead of having them, you know, just go in circles in the dark, because it sounds like they have. And I looked at the budget too, and it's better, but it's still bare bones. It's really not great. So I think maybe it's time to help and offer assistance, just like I would ask for it if we were putting together some complex budget. There's plenty of people for me to ask. So that's my 2 cents.
Those offers have absolutely been made.
They have, and apparently is my understanding that Veolia has always put the budget together for them.
Correct.
Okay.
So,
Well,
but again, we can address that in more depth in the next conversation.
sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, then we have a motion that was made. We've had discussion. So all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 A begrudging aye.
Okay.
Opposed?
Oppose.
Okay, one opposed. Any abstentions?
Abstain. I
Anne
have.
Marie abstains. Okay, so the motion, the chair votes aye, motion passes 5-1-1. Please note Chris's negative votes and Anne Marie's abstention. Excellent. Moving on to item number 8, executive session, Seymour WPCA. Under attorney-client privilege document is the reason that we will be going in. We are going to invite Rich Paterla to join us in executive session. And Malia will come into executive session simply because we are not 100% sure that if she goes out that we're not going to turn the whole meeting off. So she's going to shut the recording off. She is going to walk away from her computer. She's going to put Monica in the waiting room. Malia will be on the screen but not listening. I just want to put that out so that way everyone is aware of that. Okay, so with that, I make a motion that we go into executive session at 8:10 p.m.
And if I may, I just want to, because this is a very technical area of the Freedom of Information Law, and I want to be clear, the basis for the executive session is under 1-200C6 subpart E, discussion of a matter which would result in the disclosure of public records or the information contained therein as described in subsection B of section 1-210 of the Connecticut General Statutes. And that section deals with attorney-client privilege communications, among other things. And that's the basis for this executive session.
Okay, so
Thank you.
thank you. So that is part of the motion. Who would like to make that motion?
Well,
Motion by Chris, second by Anne Marie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. So we'll go into executive session. So Malia, if you can put Monica in the waiting room. Okay, so we have Monica back. All right, so I'll state that we are coming out of executive session at 8:36 p.m. and also state that no actions or motions were taken in executive session. With that, we'll move on to item number 9, which are appointments. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the appointment list dated August 4th, 2020 as presented. Motion by Trish, second by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Item number 10, tax refunds and abatements. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the tax collector's report dated August 14th, 2020 as presented by Susan Bowen, Assistant Tax Collector. Motion by Anne Marie, second by Trish. Just under discussion, make sure that you have no conflicts. Hearing no comments, all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Item number 11 are transfers. So we have one transfer before us. Rob, you did receive the transfer, correct? Yes, you did. Okay, you nodded affirmatively. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve a transfer control number 5. The authorized person is myself. The department is retirement, employee benefits. The amount requested is $147,266.89. And that is coming out of 5 different contingency lines and being moved into the retirement lines for the finance department, the selectman's office, the tax collector, the tax assessor, the town clerk, the building department, police, fire marshal, office of compliance, highway and streets, services to the elderly, recreation commission, and library. And then under the detail, our retirement budget was funded with a rate of 12%, and for municipal employees, 17% for police. The actual retirement funding was 13.73 and 20.24%. If you recall, when we had put this budget together, it was in 2019. At that point, there was only talk of the MRF board raising the rates over the next 5 years. So instead of unnecessarily overtaxing the people, we kept the rates at the lower amounts, but built some contingencies into our budget to be able to address those. So again, when we vote on a transfer, it's simply that we understand that it needs to be made. It goes on to the Board of Finance for final decision. So I'll entertain a motion then to approve control item number 5 as discussed. Motion by Trish,
So moved.
second by Bob Finley. Any additional questions or discussions? Okay, hearing none. Well, I'll have one because I just want to put it on the record. As a person who came from this industry prior to becoming first selectman, I think that it is absolutely ridiculous and disgusting that the state thinks that it makes more sense to force the towns and cities to pay more for this retirement plan as opposed to making changes to it. The MERF plan has never once had a change to it. It was set up to mirror the state employees retirement plan. The state employee retirement plan, I believe, is on its 6th iteration at this point, but we cannot even have a discussion in the labor committee with regards to making changes to this. I think it's absolutely ridiculous and absolutely disgusting. These numbers are going to continue going up. When it is done, we will be paying 25% each year for each police officer into this account. Again, which is obscene in the private sector. If I told you you had a defined benefit plan where the employer was putting in 25% of your pay, you could probably retire when you were 32 and have more money than you could ever possibly spend for the rest of your life. This is ridiculous and insane and, quite honestly, stupid. There's no other term other than that. So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The chair votes aye only because I have to. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, thank you. Sorry about my little tirade, but just annoys the heck out of me. Item number 12 is correspondence. So we have the check register, and then also we have the results of the 2020 Catherine Matthews grant submissions. The town of Seymour received every single grant that it applied for.
Nice.
So you can see that list there. So I wanted to put this in. This process is run by Dee Caruso in my office, and I just wanted to give her a little shout out for the hard work and effort that she puts in to get all these grants and to work with all the boards and commissions to get that done. So again, and also for your reference to see what we received grants for. So we've certainly come a long way in this. I think those of you that haven't been on the board for a while know that one year we actually got shut out by the Catherine Matthews Foundation because they did not like the way Seymour did its grant process. So over the last 7 years or so, we've come a long way, and a lot of that is credit to Dee and to the folks in our finance department. So, all right. So with that, we'll move on to item number 13, which is public comment. Malia, have we received any public comments?
No.
We have not. Okay, and there is no public comment here as well. So we will move on to item number 14, Selectmen's public comment, and we will go in the order as always on the screen. And we will start with you, Tricia Danka, in the dark room.
Just in the interest of entertainment, anyone who, because I got many texts, what you saw in the window before I closed my blinds was a computer screen, not a television. So I don't really.
Allegedly.
Well,
Allegedly.
Well, I'd imagine you'd see a lot more movement if it was a TV, but oh, actually, funny story. It is a TV, but it has an HDMI cable hooked up to my tiny laptop so I can see. Anyway, I don't really have any public comment this evening, other than everyone continue to stay healthy and safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Moving down the line, Mr. Finley.
Sorry. No, not much public comment. Town's doing well. I think the social distancing is still maintaining. You go to the store, you still see it. So as a town, we're still doing well with respect to that. So just everybody keep up the good work, and let's continue to get through this. So.
Thank you, Bob. Anne Marie.
I would like to, couple of things. The track and field up at the high school. I don't know if anybody's watched the Seymour Moms page. We discussed it last night in the Public Works meeting. Apparently, they're walking the track. People are walking the track since the whole COVID has taken place, and they're leaving trash bottles, soda cans, Gatorade, water bottles when the trash can is right there. A couple of moms were complaining about it. Hold on,
Yeah, I can
Berna.
speak to it.
And in my last night's meeting to Tony, one of the board members said, well, let's just shut the parks down. And I said, I don't feel like anybody coming to me with pitchforks and threatening to burn my house down. I did ask Tony if we could put some signs up there to please pick up your trash. It's shameful that we have to tell adults, young adults, preteens, maybe even kids to pick up your trash. This should be taught at home, but there is no maid servant. There's no mom up there picking up trash after you. Pick up your mess or deal with the outcome of it. Onto Public Works, I want to thank them because I didn't thank them in our Eversource meeting because I think we were all on fire in that meeting. For those of us that lost power and for those of us that had sympathy, for those of us that lost power, I appreciate it. But Tony and his gang did a bang up job in cleaning up the roads and helping out when they needed to be. Eversource shows up in town 8 o'clock at night. Those guys are leaving their families who didn't have power to come out and help with it. Our guys were even getting sworn at. They took a lot of crap from the residents because a lot of people were upset with them, as well as our town crews, Alex, Tom. They were out there helping everybody to get what they need, and a big round of applause. And I think and I feel I'll be texting each one of our board members separately to maybe doing something for them. Even though we have another storm coming at the end of August, middle of September. So Bruno, you better have your generator going.
I'm going to be ready. It
Sure.
dropped and it's ready to rock and roll.
Mine comes with a rental fee going forward.
I think, and just a big thank you to the EMS as well. Tommy and his crew, they did a wonderful job. That's about it.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Al?
Well, I can speak to the Seymour High School track garbage because I'm up there almost every night for Katie's high school girls soccer practices, and I even occasionally jog with Rob up there. What happens is we have a lot of young kids, and I mean, see young kids, they're probably middle school age. We have some high school kids. I see it more with the group of the middle schoolers. They just leave their trash everywhere up there, behind the goals, on the sidelines where they're sitting, and it's the same group of like 10 to 15 of them. And we've asked them, like, please throw in the garbage. They position garbage cans all around the track up there. There's got to be 3 or 4, so it's not much effort to just dump it in. They're just plastic water bottles, smashed bottles, wrappers of candy, whatever it may be. It's bad. It's not awful, but the kids should be picking that up. I haven't seen an adult litter one time that I've been up there. I haven't seen any of the teams litter up there. The coaches are constantly saying, pick it up. I go by and say, pick it up if they forget their container. Usually the girls and the boys teams are pretty good at picking that up, the high school kids. So it's just one group of kids. They're just, they're middle schoolers. They don't care. So they leave it all over the place. Not that that's right, but that is what it is. That's who's doing it. Regarding just one comment I'd like to make, I know a lot of parents have been texting me lately. I have nothing to do with it, but they know that my daughter plays sports at the high school. I love to play sports too on the side, and they keep commenting about CIAC. So hopefully all I can say is I hope the CIAC is not stopped for political reasons for permitting our fall teams to go forward. I'm all for safety, but if we have an issue, they can hit the pause button and stop it at any time. I think everybody's willing to do that. My daughter has played in her summer conditioning league with her teammates from the high school on the girls soccer team for the past almost 8 weeks. And we haven't had a single issue at CFC in Bethany on that field with 5 or 6 other girls teams participating in the league. Amity, Nanawag, Coggins, Watertown, Seymour, and there's one other team that I'm forgetting, but we haven't had any issues. People are doing the right thing. The girls are doing the right thing when they're playing. It's absurd. I mean, I understand football might be an issue, but it's illogical to punish all the other kids that play other sports if they decide to, unfortunately, pause football without even giving it an opportunity to go forward either. We all know I love football, but, played it in high school and college, but I don't. It's a full contact sport. So I've heard a lot about that, so I thought they had to comment tonight about it, even though it only involves the town tangentially. But and I want to give Public Works kudos. They're doing a great job. I understand they did take some flack from residents. Shame on them. Our Public Works crew works very, very hard. There's nothing to complain about with them, really. Not their fault about the storm. They can't work on trees with live wires down. I mean, people have to use a little common sense and understand that in these situations. So kudos to Tony and his crew as usual. They're doing a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Chris.
So to kind of piggyback off the point about the high school and the trash, we go through the same thing in Chapel Park. I live very close to that park. And even worse, those aren't just litter. I'm seeing a lot of masks still on August 18th of 2020. We're 6 months into this pandemic. People are just leaving their masks all over the place especially around the basketball courts. It tends to be a group of older kids. Pick them up, because now Public Works is putting themselves at risk to clean up your mess. We try to be polite about this, and we try to be adults about this, but this is risky behavior that you're doing. And there's garbage cans all over the place. There's definitely one by the court. There's 2 more by the pavilion. There's one by the new Matthews sign. And thank you, by the way, to Public Works for putting up the new signs at Mathis Park and at the walking track. This is common courtesy, and it's the easiest thing you can do. You walk 10 feet and put it in the darn trash bin. I also want to point out that everybody that works for the town, whether you're elected, whether you're professional staff, our professional staff is amazing. And our elected people don't get into this voluntary position twirling their mustaches. And I'm noticing a trend where, obviously with the Public Works, it's been discussed, but also with the school system, they're just venting their frustrations at the first person they see, and everybody takes our jobs very, very seriously. So I ask people to please be respectful towards our employees, especially anybody on a board or a commission. We're trying our hardest to make life better for our community and to help everybody to see more of Seymour. We're doing our best. So if you do have a disagreement, by all means, let someone know, but be respectful about it. And lastly, congratulations to the Van Egan family. Rob and his wife, Audra. They are about to have their first child. Sorry to steal your thunder, Rob, but I came up first. Blame Kurt. That's all.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Cotton.
That's you, Rob.
Go ahead. Oh,
That's you, Rob.
sorry, I had
That's
distracted.
you, Rob. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chris. So this, to piggyback, and I did say it at the last meeting, thank you very much to our Department of Public Works. They did an amazing job. This morning I was at Basement Systems, Bizzuto's. I don't know if I think I've mentioned it before. Bizzuto's has started doing a monthly drop. So we divvied up truckloads of food for the 5 local food banks. Always happy to be part of that, working with Dave Morgan over at Team. That's a phenomenal thing that kind of piggybacks on to the fact that we're going to be hosting a food drive, the Democratic Town Committee, on the 29th. So we'll get some info about that for people who want to contribute. More pressing is this Friday is going to be, I'm sure Trish already knows, Al's gotten the emails at the, we're going to be doing a blood drive this Friday. Chris, help me out. I'm losing it. Where are we having the blood?
Chatfield Parks thing, right?
The
Land Trust Building.
Land Trust Building.
Land Trust. Kurt, that's why you're first selectman. Thank you. As soon as I went to say it just went. So we're doing that. It is now by appointment. You cannot do walk-ins anymore. They've changed up a lot of policies to be safe for COVID, but it is important. The need for blood is there. The need for anybody who's possibly already had it and has antibodies also very big. So if you can on Friday, sign up. There's still a bunch of, I know, afternoon spots. So if anyone can give blood this Friday, there's a lot of drives that are going to be happening. So this won't be your only opportunity. Food drive at the end of the month. Just continue to be good to each other. Seymour has gone above and beyond. Wonderful people. Thank you all so much. And I'm going to be a dad.
Woo!
Yay.
Sleep
All
now.
right. Yeah, that's right. Get it in now.
Sleep now.
Rich, anything you'd like to add?
No, it's just an absolute pleasure to be with you all again. Congratulations, Rob.
Yes, Bob Finley did go.
I just have to add, I just want Rob to start putting your money away for college now.
Yeah.
Right? That's my,
It still won't be enough.
I was just going to say that it'll never be enough.
Wait, what are you talking about college? If this is showing us anything, my kid's going to be a plumber, an electrician.
good point.
That's right.
Trade school, buddy, trade school.
She's a girl. She can do anything she wants to do in this world.
She's going to
Oh, my.
she's going to go to Mars. I think
That's it.
you're going. Tesla.
Malia McCool, hopefully we missed something that you'd like to add.
Not at all.
Thank you, Malia, for that. All right, so with that being said,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I don't even know where to go. Once again, I still don't know where to go with that, but Anne Marie and Chris with the motions, we will, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Mark the meeting closed at 8:56 p.m. And have a wonderful night, everyone.